Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm reporting live. Well, you'll see it recorded, but I'm recording live with Marjorie Lewis, who is one of the dearest Pulpwood Queen authors. She's so generous. She has such kindness and empathy. She also has quite a story in her book that she's going to be showing us today and talking about. But I want to introduce her and say, hi, Marjorie. How are you this Sunday afternoon?
Hi, Kathy. I'm great. It's kind of one of those really nice, rare Sunday afternoons where you've got this steady rain outside. Everything feels so calm and peaceful and almost like dark too. So you feel like sleeping all day.
Yeah, I always say I'm going to sleep in on Sundays, and I never do. I never.
Yeah. I
I
know
get out
the
of bed.
feeling.
I've got things I've got to do, but you have been so busy. First of all, explain to our audience, and there's going to be a lot that have not, because it goes around the world. There's going to be a lot of people that don't know what you do. Let's talk about first what you do and who you've been interviewing lately.
Oh, okay. Well, a little background. I am a sports writer. That was my original career. So what I do is I change careers. That's what I do. I started out as a sports writer, and I was with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram for a number of years, and then with the Dallas Morning News. And well, with both papers, I covered the Dallas Cowboys beat. So back in the mid '80s, late '80s, I became the first woman Dallas Cowboys beat writer, which meant that I had to be everywhere the Cowboys were, practices, games. I had to follow drafts, and I had to follow contract negotiations, and I had to cover the strike when there were two teams and all kinds of things that were going on. So it was
What
like,
was this the time when Troy Aikman was playing for the Cowboys?
yes, it was the end of Tom Landry's era and then the beginning of Jimmy Johnson. So it
Yes.
overlapped. In fact, I did spend a full day with Troy Aikman one day to report on what
Oh,
it's like, the life of Troy Aikman, a day in the life of Troy Aikman. So we spent the entire day together. I went with him to press conferences. I went with him to restaurants where he was being interviewed by radio stations, and we just drove in the same car together all day, and I did that with Michael Irvin too. I mean, talk about
I
interesting.
love them. I love
Yeah.
them. I was a big Cowboys fan when I came here. I've never been to a Cowboys game, never.
Oh,
And
okay.
I've been to, the Rangers and all this other stuff. And in Kansas, I went to the Kansas City Royals and, all that, but never been to Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
But I've got to tell you a quick Troy Aikman story because
Oh.
back when I was a lowly children's bookseller, and then I got, kind of promoted to children's buyer and
Uh-huh.
children's book manager and event coordinator. They had a contest for Troy Aikman to win a visit because he'd done a children's book
Mhm.
on inspire kids, to go after their dreams. And and I knew he was a big golfer.
Right.
So we have a golf course right behind the bookstore that I worked at. So
Mhm.
I got all the staff to bring their golf clubs to work. And we said, Troy Aikman, if you come to Barron's, which was the store, Barron's Books in Longview, Texas, if you'll come to Barron's, we'll caddy for you. And he thought that was hilarious. And I remember Coy Bateman, who was his rep, called me and said, oh my God, Troy thinks this is great. He'll do it.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Well, no, Murphy's Law strikes again.
Oh, no.
The Oklahoma City bombing happened.
Oh,
And I got an email from him, and he said, of course, he had to go to
yeah.
help with that. And of
Mhm.
course, I was like devastated, but I totally understood because, of course, he had to.
Oh, yeah.
And then I went to Book Expo, and at the drawing for the Troy Aikman football, guess who won?
Oh, okay. Well,
I
good.
could have brought my Troy Aikman. I've got a Troy Aikman beanie baby. I've got a
Uh-huh.
football. I've got his signed book. So anyway, I've always been a big Cowboys fan. And the guy, do you remember the book All That Rage?
All that rage.
He was
I
a Dallas Cowboy, and he was signing at my friend's bookstore in Fort Worth. He has four Super Bowl rings. Oh my gosh, what a
Oh, yes. You're
oh,
talking about
it's on the tip of my tongue.
mine
But
too. He
yeah,
used to be with the 49ers, and then he came to the Cowboys. All of a sudden now I can't remember his name, but
well,
I know who you're talking about.
I went up to help my friends do a book event with them,
Mhm.
and then his daughter had to be hospitalized, and that got canceled. I go, what
Mm.
is it with the Cowboys? I go,
Oh, no.
no, but I'm so I've always been fascinated by what you do because you're living a lot of people's dreams. Because my dad wanted to be a football coach, and we were literally forced to watch football 24/7 when it was on TV. He was an Oklahoma Sooner fan, and I went to the games with him, which was live games are fun, but I
Yeah.
just but
It was
anyway,
too much for you, huh? Yeah.
I
See,
just
for me,
love
that's a
what
dream.
you do, and I know you need to write a book about it because I'm sure there's some incredible stories.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
so what have you been doing now?
Well, let me go backward a little bit because you
Okay.
mentioned Longview. So I moved from, well, I was born and raised in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and went to Arizona State University. And then I came out here and I moved to Dallas. And I I moved to Dallas in 1980. I didn't know anybody. I just knew when I was 12 years old that I wanted to move here. So I just packed my bag. My sister and I came out in my mom's car, and and then she flew out and left me here. And I'm all alone sitting in my apartment thinking, okay, why am I here? But here I am, let's go. And then in 1983, I got a little bit tired of the traffic. So by then I got married. I had been married 2 years by then. I met my husband almost right out when I got here. And I said, let's move to East Texas. So we moved to Longview, and we moved
No
to Longview,
way!
and
What year were you
I
there?
was the sports editor of the Kilgore News Herald from the summer of 83 to the summer of 84. And then when we left, I kind of missed the large city. And plus I had talked two sisters into moving here, and then all of a sudden I left. So I missed them.
Yeah.
And so we came back, and I went straight from the Kilgore News Herald to the Fort Worth Star Telegram. So I had to throw that in there that I am also a former East Texas girl.
Well, did you go to Barron's Books when it was there?
Oh, I'm sure I did. I don't remember everything,
It's
that it was
just
so long
Barron's
ago,
it's
but
just Barron's now, and they have a
uh-huh.
restaurant and everything, but anyway, that was before I got there because I started there in 1990,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
like 1992 or so, and I was there 7 years, and then I became a book publisher's rep, but
Uh-huh.
I loved, working there at the bookstore, and, East Texas is a whole different ballgame than Dallas.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm glad I lived there that year. I really
I
enjoyed
didn't
it.
know you were with the Kilgore paper. That's
Yes.
cool.
I
It's,
was
all
there.
these
I was covering a baseball game. Actually, the next morning I came in, and that's when they told us what had happened with the KFC murders out in Kilgore. So I was I wasn't part of the reporting team on that, but one of my colleagues was, and she did a wonderful job. And I've never forgotten that horrible day, but I was there when that happened. So yeah, you just didn't expect something like that in a little town. You go out
Oh,
East Texas
there
and
were quite a few things like that that happened in Jefferson too, and,
uh-huh.
in fact, the guy that used to make my jewelry when I had my Beauty in the Book, I left and kinda lost contact with him, and then I get a message that they had found him, and he had been in the bottom of Lake of the Pines in his truck for over a year.
Oh my goodness. Oh
And
gosh.
it was very controversial because they said it was suicide, and I was like, "Uh, I knew that guy. I don't think so." So I don't know what happened exactly, but, when we had the drought, the water dropped and they could see the
And
top of
that's how
his truck.
yeah.
But it was,
Mm.
like, such a shock to me because I just loved him.
Mhm.
He was really trying to turn his life around, and, then that happened. So, yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
tragedies everywhere, it's
Yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. It's just too bad that we didn't cross paths back
I
then. So,
know, but it's
mhm.
okay because when we did cross paths, it was wonderful. And let's talk about your book. Do you have a copy that you can show to
Well, here is a copy of the
Yeah,
book.
it's got a beautiful cover too.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, so this actress that posed for the cover, when I saw the cover, it's published by HarperCollins, and I
Yep,
had no say in the
I know.
cover. So my editor sends me the link, and she says, "Here, Marjorie, take a look at the cover. Tell me what you think." And I opened it, and I couldn't believe that the model looked like exactly like my mother at that age, when she was
Are
that age.
you kidding?
It
Oh
was
my,
unbelievable. In fact, my mom, her brother, at the time that the book came out, her brother was about 94 years old, 93, somewhere in there. And when his daughters gave him a copy of it, he looked at it and he said, "Oh, they put Corrine on the cover." I mean, he thought it was his sister, my mom.
you
I mean,
know,
can you believe that? How could that happen?
I really pay attention to those things because I think there's signs that this was meant to happen. And then you've got something wonderful happening since the book
Yeah.
has come out. Let's
Mm.
talk a little bit about that and then we'll go back to the book. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, in development currently is the film version of When the Men Were Gone. One of the producers, she brought the book Still Alice, if you're familiar, from the book to film, and that year Julianne Moore won Best Actress. She won the Oscar.
Oh my gosh.
So I just have an outstanding team together. Um, uh, we also have several other producers. The director is already on board. She did the more recent, she directed Cheaper by the Dozen, the recent version, if you're familiar with that, for Disney. She was the director on that project. And then we have the Mandalay Films is going to be producing it.
Mandalay. And
Yes.
is this being done, filmed in California?
Well, they haven't talked about locations yet. I told them I really, really hope that we can get at least a little bit, at least in Texas. Especially if we could go to Brownwood, where the book takes place. And we'll see, because it's still early in there. We're working now on trying to get the actress. So once we get the actress, then we'll go to the distributor, and then we'll be on our way.
Are there
So,
any names that are being thrown out or who do you think might?
it's funny because I am not used to not being hands-on on a project, and I'm going to be part of this. They've kept me very informed along the way. I read the treatment, I read the draft. We Zoom with the whole team, and I give them feedback, and they've been really good about keeping me in the loop. But they told me, "We will just get the actress and we'll let you know. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Don't panic." And so I really don't know what's happening there. Every now and then I get a little anxiety, like, "Okay, I wonder what's happening." But they're professionals. I kind of just let them do their thing, and they could fill me in. But I'm very confident they're going to get somebody who is going to just knock it out of the park. They're going to find the film version of the real Tylene.
Well, this is a real opportunity too for somebody that normally might not get a chance to be in I don't know what the percentage of men are that get in films, but women have they have a hard time starring in a film. So this
Right.
is
And this will be so female driven, incredibly, she'll be the star. Tylene Wilson and everybody around her will be part of the story, but the woman that plays this will carry the film. And
And we've
so,
got to get Texas behind this because this is really important. I think it's really great, and I'm sure you've got a lot of support up in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
oh yes, a lot of support. And the other thing that's really wonderful is that after the book came out, the Brown County Museum of History put up a permanent exhibit of Tylene Wilson's life. And they have things that, we have the credential where she had the proof that she was qualified to coach the boys, and we have her teaching history as well. And the press box put up a room. They designated a room. It's at the Gordon Wood football field, but now they have a room called the Tylene Wilson Room, and there's a plaque to her, what she did for the district for 40 years as a teacher, principal, and coach. And, I heard some great stories. There was this one guy that said, "Yeah, I came along in the 60s when Miss Wilson was my principal." And he said, "She wasn't our football coach, but when our football coach couldn't make practice, she ran the practices." And everybody was like, "Okay, we know we better be in shape," because she was serious.
Well, for those that don't know the story, give them a little background about what this book is about, because this is an incredible story in a time where women did not have, I mean, even today we're still struggling, but give them the premise of this book without any, giving
Yeah,
anything away.
right. Okay. Well, it's set in 1944, and a lot of the men were gone. That's the name of the book. When the men were gone, a lot of the coaches and all had gone off to serve during World War II, and they were going to shut down the football program because there were no men there to coach. And the boys that were seniors said, well, if there's no football program, we're going to go ahead and enlist early. And a lot of kids did that. They enlisted early. Sometimes their parents signed off on them if they were 16 and said it's okay. Others would lie about their age. And at that time, you didn't need to have IDs or anything like you do today. So there's a backstory as to why Tylene wanted the boys to finish their childhood before they went off to do what men do. So she wanted to keep them home and decided, after trying to find a coach, that she was really the one to take over the team. Had a lot of pushback, as you can imagine, in 1944. You think about, yes, in the 40s, a lot of women were going into the factories. They were doing a lot of things that the men had done, that the men weren't available during the war, and women took over. But imagine Central Texas, a small town,
Yeah,
where a football coach is almost like the face of your city, because the football field is the largest gathering place in these towns.
it
And all of a sudden
is.
you have a woman walking the sideline. It just, they weren't ready for it. So the story is all about how it happened, her journey, her perseverance, and then how the boys came to rally around her, and
It's
the whole town.
a tremendous story. And I was just telling you before we signed on, I just watched this film on Netflix called The Long Game about these American boys that were, Hispanic Americans and, Mexican Americans. And they were caddies at a country club. They couldn't play there. Nobody could join there. And this man comes to town who is also American Hispanic, and he becomes the superintendent, and he starts a golf team. And all I could think about was your story, because it's a
Oh,
story about, it's not just a story about somebody that's, it's a diverse character comes in to play these major roles in these children's lives, but they're true. I mean, this
yes.
is real. It was really based. Dennis Quaid was in it. He played a golf pro, and uh,
Oh,
there was the other actors I did not know at all, but they were exceptional. And I think that when your movie comes out, I'm going to rally our reading membership and let us go all to the movies. They need to do a premiere in Dallas so we can get all of our group to go.
oh, wouldn't that be wonderful?
It would. We went to, our very first book was Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood.
Oh,
And
wow.
the director called me and said, would you like to come to the premiere in New Orleans? And we went.
Oh,
And
that's
we were
wonderful.
one of the first Yaya groups, and it was our first book, and Rebecca was a friend,
Yeah.
and we went and we had the time of our lives. So, I it's all about networking and everything. So I'm here to tell everybody out there, when this movie comes out, we're all going to support Marjorie and take a trip to Dallas, Fort Worth, wherever we do the premiere, and we will go. I mean, it
Oh,
was so
thank you,
much fun.
Kathy.
No. I want to tell you a little bit about Marjorie. When I had my executive director, Tawana Anderson Neal, who just would have celebrated her
Yeah, yesterday.
70th birthday.
Mhm.
Um, she suddenly passed away one Good Friday, Easter, and it was devastating to me. And so I started a scholarship program to help pay for authors and members to come to the book club. And you were one of the first ones to sponsor somebody to come to our weekend. And I think you did it 2 years in a row, if I recall. And I cannot thank you enough for your generosity. And the reason why you're so successful in this is going to film, because you have manifested a destiny that is just unbelievable. And it's going to be so inspiring to both men and women, and also to the youth, because it's going to empower a lot of people. So I
Well,
just
thank
had,
you so much for that, Kathy. And what really makes me happy is, I was at a book event, and a woman came up to me and said, I'm buying this book. I'm giving it to my granddaughter because she is in a male-dominated field and has no pushback, is totally, everything is wonderful and good. And I want her to know about the women that came before her that made her life what it is now, because what they went through changed everything for the future. And that's what I want people to know about Tylene and what she did. She's not all that well known. And when I found out her story, I thought, why haven't we heard about this? It's almost like Katherine Johnson when Hidden Figures came out. Why hadn't we already heard about her? These are stories that are long overdue. And I'm just grateful that I got to be the one to tell Tylene Wilson's story.
Well, that was my grandmother's generation, and those women were take charge. My grandmother was a real entrepreneur, and she, she lived on a farm, my grandfather and her, but they ran a store, and she was always the one that took the, homemade goods and but she worked.
Yeah.
And I just think, then we have my mother's generation, we're stay-at-home moms, and that's the hardest job in the world. I'm going to tell you.
I did it for a few years. Yeah.
I did too. And it is the hardest job in the world. But women have taken on a lot in the past decades. And the fact that these women are examples, but that's exactly why I went back to get my art history master's degree, because I wanted to know the history of art, and also finding out that women in art were not even recognized till the 1970s.
Yeah, isn't that
for all time?
Yeah, yes.
African American art was recognized in the late 1800s, but women were not recognized. And now all these shows and these museums are bringing these women forward. So it's a trend that's happening now. We've come
That's
into
wonderful. I mean, just like writers. I mean, George Eliot,
Yes.
she had to use a male name to get herself published. I mean, it was just a different world. And so it's really nice to see so many opportunities today for women. I mean, most of the books I read are written by women, not all, but a good number of them. And it's nice to have that exposure now.
Maybe someday somebody will be making a movie out of you, because look at what you're doing. I mean, it's hard to be in the sports world for a woman. And what you've done is, it's a major accomplishment, because, I've been to a zillion football games, and I just think of Jefferson, when I left there, had 27 coaches on the football programs in the school. And this is a town of 1,800. 27 coaches.
And Tylene did it by herself.
No, I mean, well, what is the old saying? If you want to get a job done, you hire a woman. But anyway, and I am not a man basher. There's plenty of men out there that are leading the way along with us. So it's all about giving credit where credit is due.
And I have to tell you, when you say give credit where credit is due, the reason that I had the career I had is because all the men that were sports editors kept promoting me. I did not enter sports writing expect to be the first woman from any news entity to cover the Dallas Cowboys as a beat. Never even occurred to me. I was covering college football and I loved it. And then one day my male sports editor says, I'm putting you on the Cowboys beat. I wasn't knocking down his door.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like, because
I wasn't knocking down his door. I wasn't aspiring to do it. And all of a sudden now it was a life changer. And so, no, I'm not bashing either. I'm very grateful for the ones. In fact, when I was in Kilgore, and I told the sports, the publisher of the News Herald, the managing editor, I told him I'm going to move back to Dallas Fort Worth. And he said, well, I have a friend, another guy who is with the Star Telegram. I'm going to tell him about you. And so that's how I got my foot in the door at the Star Telegram, because one man told another man. And then I went in to go meet him, and he hired me. So I am very grateful, but I do want to, I want to say that I also felt, as I'm sure you have in a lot of different things that you've done in your life, that you want to represent not just yourself and your work, but you want to show that women are up to this, and that you hope that you can do the kind of job that will open doors for others that follow you. And I felt that responsibility. Absolutely. I still do.
I think that's so commendable. And I'll tell you, everything that is happening to you is so deserved, because you're such a warm and loving, kind person. And, that is what we need more in this world. That's why my new program is KathyL.Murphy Big Book Love, because I have a big book love for my authors, especially you today. And I just want
Thank
everybody
you.
to know every one of our books should be made into a movie, because every story is told from, I try to pick things that are, not known, because
Huh.
our history is usually only recorded by the victor.
Mhm.
So
That's
if
true.
we can get stories out there that tell people that broke some glass ceilings, and maybe those that are behind us will be inspired to do this. Now, have you ever had the opportunity to have somebody shadow you at work? Have you ever taken your children to work or anything like that?
Well, I'm also a college professor, so I have taken my kids with me. Well, I've actually done it both. Okay, so I've taken them. I teach now at the University of North Texas. I used to be the head of the journalism department at Dallas College at Richland campus, and so my students knew my kids. I would take them to the newsroom. I was the advisor for the student publications and all, and so my students knew my kids. They all knew each other. But the other thing is, when I became a mom and I moved into teaching and left the big Dallas Cowboys beat and all of that, I stayed with the Dallas Morning News for another 14 years, covering
Oh.
football, uh, college basketball, and Big 12 softball. And so on the weekends, I would take my kids to the football games. And I would sit in the press box, and my husband and my two daughters would sit in the stands. And then at halftime, they'd come up and bring me some really hot cocoa. And and then when the game was over, I was writing my story, and I would look out the window and all the fans were gone, but I would see my daughters doing cartwheels on the football field.
Oh my God.
And I absolutely loved it. I've often thought about writing a short story called Cartwheels on the Football Field and talking
You
about taking my
should.
daughters
You
to all these.
really should, because almost every author I interview for this almost 25 years, you have some stories that are just, what I think of it is like Susan Orleans wrote a book about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that's kind of what you've done. You've done extraordinary things, and those stories need to be told. I'm a storyteller, and I want to share these stories that need to be told to inspire and to bring some beauty and kindness and empathy into the world, because
Yeah.
there's so much hate and just everything that's happened in the political spectrum. I try to keep away from all that, but everything that's happened in it, I think it's alienated people. But I do want to say that if you ever get around any of our authors and get out in the world on the road where you're getting away from social media, you'll find that this is a pretty good world,
Oh,
because
definitely.
when
Absolutely.
Tawana and I used to take trips, and we would have the most amazing kindness and open doors for us. And I
Yes.
thought, I had no idea, we tend to think everything we see is what we see on the internet. Get out there, people, go to the small towns, go visit, go to the games, and you'll find that, just like the place I work, Hangers of Hope, it is the most wonderful community spirit I've ever been in my life. It's a faith-based nonprofit that has these stores that raise money for healthcare for people that fall between the cracks, and mental health
Um,
care, and now pediatrics. And it's not the highest paying job in the world, but it is so rewarding, because every day lives are being touched. And I want to do it the rest of my life. I want to be in service to others. And so that's what you're doing it. You're living it, you're breathing it. And so you've got this happening, and you've kind of letting the ball run, you're consulting. So what are you doing in the meantime? Are you working on another book?
well, I am. I started working on another book. It's set in San Antonio, Texas in 1916. And then COVID hit, and I
Yeah.
couldn't go to the places that I had to do the research. Yeah, I had to just stay home. So I decided to put it aside. It's about halfway done.
Oh, good.
I decided to put it aside and go back to school and do an online program where you are synchronous. So it was a cohort, and we all saw each other every class time, our little boxes with the 15 students, and we actually got to know each other much better than I got to know most of my classmates in previous graduate work. So I worked on a doctorate that I finished in May. And
Oh my
so,
gosh, congratulations.
well,
That's so
thank you.
fun.
Yeah, at Murray State up in Kentucky, and the most of my cohort made it to graduation, so we actually got to see each other in person. But what was nice is that it felt like we had already known each other for several years because we had been going to school since 21. So we see each other for the first time, but we were already great friends. We already knew personal stories, we knew family lives, we knew each other, we knew their jobs, and so it was like a reunion rather than a first time gathering. And so I loved it, that getting to be a part of this cohort. And even though it was distant, we were just in each other's faces constantly, and I loved it.
And what was your doctorate? What was that in? Was it in
It's
creative?
in English pedagogy with a focus on rhetoric and composition.
Oh my gosh, I am so inspired. And we're exactly the same age. And here I'm just working on my master's right
I think
now.
that's wonderful that you're doing that. I think it's
Well,
wonderful at any age. I always just quote my husband. He says, do anything you want as long as you're on this side of the dirt, just keep going, and that's how I feel,
this
just I
side of the dirt. That's a Texas saying. Is he a Texan?
no, but he's been here for 45 years. So
Which which reminds me, you said you were born in Santa Fe. I just did an interview with two New Mexico authors, and I said, I think I've only had two, but actually, I'm going to introduce you to Dana Ty Too Soon Burgess he's in Washington, D.C. now and runs a dance company, but he's from the Taos area.
okay.
And then oh gosh, my big lucky author, oh my gosh, why am I blank? Anyway, I'm going to introduce you in an email to them because they got together and they, it's there. He's a hairdresser that became the hairdresser to the stars. He has a dance company, and now we've got this Dallas Cowboy, reporter. I think, man, good things are coming out of New Mexico. I'm going to tell you that. So,
Absolutely, it's a wonderful state.
childhoods were very interesting because Dana comes from mixed heritage, and growing up with his Asian influence and his background was interesting, his take. And then, of course, Jim Markham, who did the Big Lucky, his was too, because he started out as a barber to make a living and then worked for Jay Sebring of the Sebring hair care products. And then when he was murdered in the Manson murder, along with Sharon Tate,
Yeah.
he took over at 24 that company. And
Oh.
for and actually has created 5 big major beauty line products that have sold to L'Oreal and all this stuff. So
Oh, wow.
Jim Markham is the one of you guys are all three of you are three of the nicest people I met. So hug a New Mexican because
That's
they're
right. That is absolutely right.
wonderful authors come from there. I probably have some more too in the 25 years. How interesting. Now I want you to tell us a little bit about your family because it's one thing to do all these things, but then you are a mother and a wife and you have family and parents. And how did you juggle all this? And how did your family handle you taking off to the football games? And
Well, when I was a Cowboys beat writer, I didn't have kids yet. So I
okay,
was married, but my husband and I mentioned this in the PS section of my book. So it's not like some big secret. You read my book, you read the back part and you know this story. But I had a very difficult time getting pregnant. And so it took us close to 8 years before we had our first daughter. And I still covered the Cowboys for a while, but then I had my second, who was a big surprise. And that's when I decided to start doing the weekend. I wrote a weekend college football game, and then I wrote a column that ran on Thursdays. So that's when I went. I spent, like I said earlier, I was a stay home mom for a while. So when they were both it was still pretty little. I stayed home for about 4 years. And when I actually went and got my first master's degree at that time. So I was home doing homework and reading and hanging out with my kids. And then I went into teaching. And it was really a nice fit, because I remember when I was going the first summer when my first child she was born in February. I went back to work in June. The paper gave me a long break. And it's probably because I would go as a Cowboys beat writer, you never get a day off. So I went about 365 days without a day off. So yeah, you work every day. You can't, there's news that could be breaking anytime. You cannot take a break. So they gave me a large chunk of time, and then I went to the Dallas Morning News, and I started in June. And that summer I left. So here my daughter's just a few months old. They send me to Wimbledon. So I'm in.
Oh my gosh. Oh
yeah,
my.
I had been going regularly. And so they sent me to Wimbledon. So I'm there for about 2.5 weeks. And then from there, I'm supposed to go to Davis Cup in Munich, Germany. And I insisted that they bring me home so I could see my daughter. And so the paper did. They wouldn't do it today. The papers don't have much money, but they flew me home for a few days. Then I flew back to Germany, to Europe, and then I went to Germany. And I was there for a good chunk of time. And then I came back, and I had to go straight to Thousand Oaks, California, because the Cowboys now are in training camp. So I'm there in Thousand Oaks for weeks. And then from there, I have to go to the home opener. And it was, if I remember correctly, it might have been in New York or Phoenix. I can't remember where the home opener, but it was a road game. So I had to go on the road. So when I get back home, I was just crying because I had spent the whole summer away from my oldest daughter. I mean, I was amazed that she still responded to me as if she might have still knew who I was. So that was very, very difficult for me, but I did that for a while. But every time I'd go on the plane, I would cry because I just, I loved my work, but I'm also a mom, and I had 8 years till we had her. I would have done anything to be a mom. In fact, when they were taking me in to have the C-section, I told my husband, if there are difficulties, save her, not me, because I want to die a mom. And so can you imagine how hard it was for me then to leave? So eventually I started covering the weekend, more local football. And so we balanced it great. My husband, he's always been a great father. He was a great baby infant dad. He probably changed just as many diapers as I did. He would travel sometimes during the week. So on the weekend, he would do all the laundry. He would do everything so that I had less of a load to do during the week while he was gone. Very incredibly supportive. And so it worked. And then as I became a college professor, then I had summers off with my kids. I had a month at Christmas with my kids. I didn't have to be at work from 9 to 5. So I picked them up after school, took them in the morning and everything. And I could swear today, they probably thought I wasn't working. They probably thought I was home all day taking a nap. They know I like naps. So they probably thought, Mom's got the light. She's taking naps all day while they're at school. And then on the weekends, they would go with me to the football games. And then in the spring, when there was no football, I used to love singing, and I was a country singer, and I would have gigs.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I would
God.
have gigs on Saturday nights. So the girls would go to these gigs, and then everybody knew them, and there would be like an intermission, and they would go up on the stage and do drawings for like a raffle or whatever. So they were always at mom events, and we were having a great time. So we balanced it well. So they grew up now to love music. They love sports. They're sports fanatics. I mean, I have one daughter that I can't say this without, feeling guilty, but there's times that I wish the local teams would lose in the playoffs because she's spending too much money going to all these games.
Oh my gosh.
And she's a teacher. She doesn't have a lot of money to waste. So I'm like, could they just lose and she doesn't have another ticket?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's fat. See, I'm telling you, you've got a book in there about you. It's going to be maybe, but I'm serious. One day they'll be making a movie about you and what you've done because
I
you're
don't know. I don't know, but I appreciate that. You're so sweet. But and I grew up in a family with sports fanatics. I'm the second of 5 kids, 4 girls before a son. My dad played baseball in college. He was a pitcher. Then he went off to dental school at Northwestern. My mom stayed at home, but she also was a golfer and a bowler. I told my
Oh,
daughters that I went to
wow.
preschool at the bowling alley.
Oh my
And
God.
and then my mom, we used to draw straws in the summer to see who would be her caddy in the, during the golf season. And, I mean, we just had so much fun. She loved music. We grew up with season tickets to the Children's Opera, the Santa Fe Opera. It doesn't get better than
I
that.
have, I would love to go. I've never been to an opera, and I would
Oh
love
my God.
to go to an opera because
Yes. And if
my
you're
best
familiar
friend,
with the Santa Fe Opera, it is as good as it gets. That is incredible. That whole venue. And oh my gosh.
I would love it because one Heidi Tyscriber or Serber now, she was a opera singer in college with me at K
Oh,
State, and she now
wow.
teaches voice. So I didn't
Wow.
really appreciate it at the time because I didn't understand it, but
Yeah.
now I love it. I love it. So what
Mhm.
an interesting life that you have had, and now you're a grandmother, and
Yes.
it's the
Oh,
best thing in the world, isn't it? It's so
it
fun.
is. Oh my gosh. I have my grandson is a year and a half, and
So
he is just such a joy. He is, oh my gosh. I just, well, you have,
I've
you
seen
know what it's
pictures.
like to be a grandmother. Yes. And it's just wonderful, wonderful. I mean, everybody tells you it's wonderful, and intuitively it must be, but it really is.
It it really is because in some ways you don't have that fear of not doing something right because you've had the experience of raising yours. So
Yes.
by the time they come along, you're like, okay, this is I can relax. But so that that it's just they're just absolutely will change your life. And then anybody that
Oh,
becomes a grandparent, when you become a mother, it's pretty life changing too, and especially
yeah.
for you. But it's really the biggest thrill ever, ever.
Yes.
What's
Yes.
your happiest thing you can think of that you've done so far with your grandson?
Oh my gosh. Well, we do everything. I mean, we've flown together. We've gone to Arizona. He lives about 4 hours away from us. He's in Oklahoma. But we go to the zoo, we go to movies, we go to the aquarium, we go. And what I love the most is how engaged he is. I feel like when I watch him, he's thinking, what is this incredible place that I've landed? It's like he's so curious about everything. His attention span is better than mine has ever been.
I know.
And he can just watch like the tigers. If I didn't move him, he'd watch them for a half an hour, and I just feel like he's absorbing everything that life is offering him at this time, and taking it all in, almost like, what is this wonderful place that I have where I am? What is this? And
It's pretty fascinating.
it is. It is.
It'll
So,
be interesting.
my dad told me that once when I became a mom, he told me that the greatest pleasure that I'm going to get out of travel and all these things isn't so much that I get to go to the Louvre or I get to but that I get to see through their eyes. He said,
Exactly.
when you do these things with your children and you watch them,
Oh,
that's the biggest joy. That's what my dad told me. And he was so right as I was raising my kids. And now as I'm watching my grandson, it's such a joy to watch them take it all in.
oh, that is so true. If anybody's out there as a grandparent, you all can relate, I'm sure. So,
Yeah.
well, this is really, really exciting. And so how many degrees do you have? You have double master?
Well, I am completing my third master's. I'll be done in December. So
Holy moly.
I'll have a bachelor's, few masters, a doctorate, Yeah. Mhm. I like the
Me too.
environment.
Me
Yes,
too. I
yes,
love being around all these young people, and people say to me, "Oh, the young people today," and I go, "The young people today are awesome. They're
yes, yes.
awesome."
And I know that as a teacher as well, teaching at the University of North Texas. And so you are absolutely right. And when I saw that you were going back to school, I was like, oh, she's in for such a treat. This is,
It was hard.
not
It
just
was
studying the material. It's hard. Yes, it's hard.
hard is the
But it's about,
technology, you know, and the technology changed between my B.F.A and my master's, because before you couldn't even have a computer in the classroom or an iPad or a
right.
phone. And now that's all you use. There's no
Yes.
textbooks.
Well, and
And
when I was in college getting my bachelor's, they weren't even invented yet.
well, yeah, I did all my papers when I started out at K-State on my Smith Corona manual typewriter with carbon
Yeah, I
paper.
had a manual typewriter, and the greatest technology was a pen that had 5 colors, you know? I
Oh
mean,
my gosh, yeah, remember those big pens with the little
yeah,
buttons?
maybe 4 colors. That was the greatest
Oh,
technology in my bachelor's degree days.
oh my gosh, that brings it all back. So
I
I
feel
am
like I was alive during chiseling on stone, the way I'm talking about.
when they
I take
invented
notes
the
much
wheel.
faster on a computer than I did with my hammer and nail, you know? Mhm.
But I'm also the student that still will roller skate on campus too, because if they'll let me. Some campuses wouldn't let me roller skate, but I always used to roller skate everywhere.
Yeah.
And they call me now on campus Mama Cat, because that's what
That's awesome.
my grandson calls me Mama Cat, and he always says it in threes. He says Mama Cat, Mama Cat, Mama Cat. So what does
Oh,
your grandson call you?
grandma. Mhm.
Grandma. Well, that would have been fine with me, but you know, my um, grandson's grandmother, they called her grandma. So
Oh, okay. Well, you know, to me, my mom, the greatest compliment my kids ever give me is that I'm the second greatest mom that's ever lived.
the
Because
second,
yes, the second, because if they said the best, if they said number one, I would know that they were lying, because my mother will never be usurped. She was the number one mother, the number one grandmother. And so when my kids tell me I'm the second best, there is no greater compliment, because I will never, no matter how I try, be as wonderful as my mother.
well, that's why you're a wonderful person.
Oh, well,
You
thank
had
you.
great upbringing and everything.
Oh,
So
wonderful, wonderful. Mhm.
this is so exciting. So on your book that's half done, have you got a working title for it or anything yet?
No, I've been messing with it, of different, of a few things. So yeah, no, I think I have more trouble coming up with a title than I do than a chapter. My husband's actually the one that came up with the title for When the Men Were Gone. I was
I
just
love
going,
that title. I
I
love
did too. I just was struggling, and you know, and finally one day we're standing in the kitchen and he said, "Stop struggling with this. She did this when the men were gone. There it is, when the men were gone." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, okay, thank you." So I tell people at speaking engagements that I write tens and tens of thousands of words. He writes 5 and he gets the cover. So, you know.
Good for him. Well, you know, my agent named my book because I was going to call it Beauty in the Book, you know,
Yeah, I
and
like that.
she said, "Well, you know, I think it should be," and I laughed when she said it. The Pulpwood, I think I spit my coffee across the table, because it was the Pulpwood Queen's Tiara Wearing Book Sharing Guide to Life, and I spit my coffee.
Yeah.
I can't write a guide to life. Everything I've done in my life has been through my mistakes, but I have learned, for all the people out there, that your mistakes is how you learn. Your
Well, that's
failures is
definitely
how
true.
you learn. If you succeed at everything, you're not learning anything. You're not
Mhm.
growing. So
Right.
you have to, I mean, we're not perfect. So our whole life is to discover our gifts and then
Yes,
give them away.
right. That's true. And you know what? Sometimes it also, I would add to that, are the regrets of things we didn't do. That's one of the things that I had an opportunity to do something once. I didn't walk through the door. And I've always told myself from then on, walk through the door, walk through the door.
Are you fearless?
Yeah, yeah.
I
Mhm.
am too. I am
Except for
totally
when it comes to heights. I don't like bridges.
Well, I don't, but I drive over them.
You have
I
to.
went
Yeah.
parasailing with my cousins at the end of the school year in Florida off the coast. And I'll tell you what, I was scared because we had a blue angel fly underneath us. No
Oh,
lie. That's how high up we were on this.
oh
All
my
this
gosh.
go, that's a blue angel, and I thought it was going to hit us, but it was like 1,000 feet below us. But I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Why are
Well,
you so
hopefully the space shuttle wasn't below you.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think I'll jump out of a plane, but I did do that. But you know what? If you face your fears, like I was a very introverted child, so I face my fears because I've read books, and it
Oh,
empowers you to understand that you're not alone in this world if you have, difficulties in navigating challenges. And
right.
so, and I thought, I've accepted it now, Guide to Life. My next book will not be called Guide to Life, but I do think that that's how we learn. And I hope everybody reads your book, When the Men Were Gone, because this book is going to be a film, and it's one of our Pulpwood Queen Book Club selections. And it is amazing story of a woman who was fearless. I mean,
Yeah,
let's
she
face
was.
it,
She
she
was.
really was. And you wrote it, and you are my shero. So
Oh, thank
keep
you.
those books coming. Is there anything you want to end this interview with that you could share with maybe new writers or those who maybe haven't picked up a book in a while? What is the thing that gets you jumping out of the bed every day?
Well, I just love storytelling. And sometimes it's jumping out of bed to tell a story that I'm sending an email to somebody about something. Sometimes it's writing another chapter. Sometimes it's just uh, guess what happened telling my husband. I think stories are just so powerful. And with When the Men Were Gone, I wasn't looking for this story. It kind of fell in my lap. And so I think there are stories everywhere. And if everybody pays attention, really close attention, they're going to find stories constantly throughout even their day. And there's always a little piece in there that you learn. You learn a little something from every story. And so, you and I, we like going to school, but we don't have to go to school to learn. We just have to listen. And there's so many.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm a eavesdropper. Do you listen in airports and in restaurants? Sometimes I can't believe some of the things that I hear. I
Yes.
just think I'm going to put that in a book one day because
Yeah, I don't really I guess I'm an unintentional eavesdropper
that's
because
what I am. I don't go, okay. No, I
no,
just
yeah, I don't do that. But when I start hearing it and it's loud enough, I don't distract myself from, then I just kind of get pulled in and I listen because I could, turn away or walk away or get on my phone and start looking at other things. But I think it just, they're there, it's in a public space, they're talking really loudly, and so I'm listening.
and at first these people wear these Bluetooths and I think they're talking to me and I go, oh yeah. And they
Oh
go,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. But
Mhm.
but when you do that, it's just a way to understand and make connections.
Yes.
Stories. We're the only animal on this planet that shares stories.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it makes us more human. So the more we share our stories, the more we can understand, and the more it helps us navigate life's difficulties. So
Yes.
anyway,
So
I
I
am
have to tell you
thrilled.
before we go, if we do we have time for a quick anecdote?
You can talk as
Okay.
much as you want.
Okay, so speaking of eavesdropping or with the ear things in when people
Uh-huh.
are talking. So my younger daughter was probably about 11 or 12, and she's sitting in the back seat of the car. My husband's driving and I'm in the passenger right in front of my daughter. And we had talked earlier in the day about going to a movie. So we're driving home and she says, "Do you want to go to a movie?" And I said, "Oh, I would love to. Which one do you want to go to?" And then she says, "I don't know. I mean, do you have anything in particular in mind?" And I said, "No, but I heard that this one, blah, 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 is kind of good." And she said, "Yeah, I don't know about what I have, if I have a preference." And we kept going back and forth. And I looked at my husband and he's like, "Oh, fine, you guys are going to the movie." And so I said, "So what time do you want to go?" And then I hear, "Can you hang on a second, please? My mom keeps talking and I can't hear you."
It's so embarrassing when you have that happen.
She's
I mean,
asking her friend on the phone to a movie, and the
you're
whole time I'm
you're having
thinking
this
it's me.
mother-daughter preteen moment.
Yeah.
It's so embarrassing. Or if you see somebody go, hi, and you go, hey, and they go,
They pass you. Yeah,
Around
exactly.
and it's some young girl behind you, you know, and you go, oh, how
I know,
embarrassing
but
is
talk about you're deflated. I thought she was inviting me to a movie, and instead she's inviting her friend, and my mom's too loud. I can't hear you.
I bet your husband got a big kick out of that
Oh,
one.
we died laughing. Oh my God, that story's like 20 years old and we still laugh. Mhm.
Well, it is funny, but everybody, we wear Bluetooth things at the store, and a lot of people do. And they just don't even realize, you know, what they're saying that you can hear. It sounds
Yeah,
like they're talking to you.
yeah, it
And, you
does.
know,
Mhm.
and you're
Yeah.
trying to engage with them and they're saying stuff that doesn't make sense. And you're going,
Mhm.
then they
Mhm.
finally go, you know, it's
Right, right.
so anyway, well, that's fun. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Marjorie. I want you to have some family time on this blessed Sunday because we are all blessed when we get to hear from our authors and especially you. So I will get this downloaded and I will get it up on my Kathy L. Murphy Big Book Love channel. Subscribe, everybody, because I'm trying to get 1,000 new people. It's free because when we launch, I want everybody to get on there to, you know, it's going to be a wonderful thing. And I've got some surprises. So
Oh,
thank you. Keep me posted on the film. And honestly, I will, you know, pick people up and put them in my FJ and we'll drive to Dallas and go to the show.
oh, that
So,
sounds fun.
I mean, we could go here, but it's so much, you know, let's support our fellow Texan author and drive to Dallas. So you
Well,
just
thank you, Kathy.
thank you, and sorry we got a little. It was my fault. We got misconnected and didn't do it earlier. But I'm
Oh,
so
yeah,
glad
that's
we
all
have it
good.
now, where it's a beautiful day, and before the men, oh gosh, when the men were gone.
When the men were gone, here we go.
When the men were gone, everybody get you a copy, and we'll see you at the movies. Okay.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I've had a ball. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Big book love, and we'll see you next time. It's all about the story. Okay. All right. Bye bye.